Hello, Rory. Welcome to Man Overboard. Thank you so much for joining. Massively appreciate it as always. I thought we'd kick off a little bit, maybe a bit of a deep question. So obviously I've seen you on the kickoff. I've seen your own channel as well. Fantastic football content. But my question to you is, how did you manage to get into that position? Like, I know you did a lot of acting before the kickoff and you're in a few TV shows and stuff, but what led to you becoming one of the biggest football personalities on YouTube?
Firstly, thank you for having me. And that's an incredibly generous and kind introduction. So I appreciate that. To be totally transparent with you, mate, I got so lucky. I completely fluked it. There was a period in my life where I didn't really know what I was doing, and I just happened to get very lucky, be in the right place at the right time, and get an introduction into this football YouTube space. I was working for a company called Fremantle Media, who basically make every comedy entertainment show that you would think of off the top of your head. Celebrity Juice, The Apprentice, Britain's Got Talent, Britain's Got More Talent, The X Factor, whatever kind of springs to mind. The very typical Saturday night show is what they would make. And I was working on a series of Britain's Got Talent, not really loving it. And all the time I was working on that show, down the corridor, I could hear these people formulating this football channel network thing. They were talking about needing Chelsea fans. They were talking about needing Manchester United fans. Does anyone know any? And I could hear this going on in a sort of different building. And I basically just went in there. I just went, look, what, I mean this fully respectfully, but what on earth are you lot doing? And by the end of that day, I'd pretty much given up on the job that I was on and started a new job. But it was just timing, just incredibly fortunate timing, and good ears. I could hear things that weren't intended for me at all.
Yeah, so in a way it was right place, right time. So what was that job that you initially went into then in football? Was that the kickoff or was that a different role?
No. It was a long time before the kickoff. So are you a football YouTube chat?
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of a lot of the football YouTubers.
A long time ago, I don't know if you can remember, there was a network of club specific channels. So there was a Tottenham channel called Spurred On. There was a Chelsea channel called Chelsea Fans Channel, a Manchester United channel called Full Time Devils, and then a sort of agnostic umbrella channel that everybody fed into and would receive from, called the Football Republic, that had no allegiances but would work with everyone.
Okay.
Interestingly, that led on to my friendship with the True Geordie, because in order to build this agnostic channel, they needed a big YouTuber with real gravity in the space, with a personality, with a following, who could build this channel. They had budget, he had an audience, two and two made a Christmas cake. So my initial introduction to working with Geordie was at Fremantle when they were trying to build this channel. But I was brought in to produce the Chelsea channel, which was called Chelsea Fans Channel, which is now not far off a decade ago. So it was, so I was the producer on it. And our main presenter was a girl called Sophie, who I think still operates in the football world as well. But she was, at one point, she was very well known in the football space.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing, to be fair. Did you ever envisage earlier on in your career that you'd have a role within football? I know you've always been a big football fan. Was that something you'd planned to do, or did you always plan to stick down a more like traditionally like acting or whatever previous thing you was doing before that?
I always liked the idea of working in sport. Like when I was very young, I'm talking sort of university age, if not before, I was quite keen on trying to work in sport radio. And it's weird because it's gone full circle with me now, because I'm fortunate enough to actually do that. But when I was very young, I wrote to all of the people that were involved. So at the time, like James Whale was very big on TalkSport. I wrote to him. I wrote to a number of people trying to get on to sport radio. But then my life kind of veered away from that, and I never thought it was possible. You know, I was working in comedy entertainment, something that I'm so disassociated with, like genuinely, like I wouldn't recognize Harry Styles in the street. I honestly wouldn't recognize him. I don't know who, you know, the girl that sung at the Champions League final and got annoyed because Liverpool fans.
I think was it Camila Cabello, I think.
I don't have a clue, right? I I'm so detached from it, which is weird because my wife, who I met while working TV, she still works in TV and she's very across celebrity culture and whatever. And it's painful for her to have a conversation with me because, you know, when you ask me about sort of celebrity, I'll immediately go, well, Leslie Ash, and I'll start talking about Naomi Campbell or Noel Gallagher and Kate Moss, whereas there's an entire, you know, because that's who I kind of knew as being famous. But in terms of now, I've got no clue whatsoever. But I got very lucky. So I left that, ended up working in football. It was definitely not a strategy. I wish I had more of one of those, but no, it was just a fortunate series of events, really.
Yeah, I think maybe not having a strategy's probably played a big part in leading to where you are at this point. Would you say there's a big difference then? Obviously, you mentioned this is one thing I wanted to talk about anyway. Working in TV in football radio, in comparison to football YouTube, I imagine the radio world is so different. I've never even been into a radio studio and the setup there or how that would work. How does that differ from talking about football on YouTube? Especially, I imagine the social comments and stuff on YouTube are probably up there.
It's interesting. There's obviously a huge difference between 90% of football channels, my own setup, and TalkSport, for example. There's obviously absolutely no overlap there. But see the kickoff. See what Brian has established, the True Geordie has established with the kickoff. I mean this like totally honestly. There is very little difference from the kickoff to TalkSport. Like the production values working on TalkSport are elite. It's the very best you could hope for. You know, the equipment, the people, it's all absolutely tip top. But Brian has emulated that. That isn't the case on YouTube. Most YouTube is a little bit rough around the edges and rogue, and I think that's part of the beauty of it. My own YouTube channel, for example, for well over a year, everything was shot on a phone. I'm balancing the phone on my kid's toy car. Like that's where it started. But no, I would say the upper echelon of YouTube is now as professional as any TV production company. Look, I don't know this for a fact. I honestly don't know this for a fact. But my guess is if you were on a Max Foss shoot, it wouldn't be dissimilar to being on a BBC shoot. I imagine.
Yeah. Did that surprise you when you first came into YouTube? We spoke to Elliot about this the other week, about like the YouTube production quality and how a lot of people might not realize, especially like as you mentioned, Max Foss, people like Nico Milana and stuff as well. Some of their setups must be, if not better than some TV setups.
Nico, I've met, but I don't know him well, but I know Sharky fairly well, who's part of the beta squad.
Yep.
I don't know this. I've never had the privilege of being on one of their shoots, but my guess would be if you were to be on a beta squad shoot, the production value, I imagine that you would get a call sheet the night before. You'd have had a production meeting in the week. A car will pick you up that morning. You will be driven to the shoot. There will be accommodation, food, and water waiting for you, and you will be treated very well. That's the way that I was treated when I was an actor and I was in EastEnders. Do you know, like, and I think the reason that's happened is because, just for the record, that isn't YouTube as a whole. I'm talking about.
No, I know.
I'm talking about
that's
that
like
1%,
very high level
1%.
YouTubers.
Yeah. Max Foss, True Geordie, Sharky, Nico, those boys, the elite of YouTube. And I think the reason that that's happened is because there is an entire swathe of young people now who consume their popular culture through YouTube. And therefore, YouTube is effectively TV to them. So when I was a kid, I used to get home, put on a telly, I'd watch Nickelodeon. They get in, they put on YouTube. And therefore, because it's TV, YouTube has to up its game. YouTube, not only does it have to, but it can, because the money is in the game. The money is there. And a lot of that top 1% are very aware that reinvesting in their own channel, in their own self, is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You reap what you sow. So firstly, the reward is there. And secondly, they have to do that because, you know, if you think about what the Sidemen achieve every Sunday, they get more views on a Sunday than the BBC at prime time. Like, so it has to be good, doesn't it? It has to be that level.
Yeah, completely agree. It's crazy to me how far YouTubers come. I've mentioned this a few times on the podcast, but I've gone from watching people where it was predominantly even the better setups were in people's bedrooms like 10, 15 years ago to now some of the high production value stuff. But moving away from that, one thing I wanted to ask you about in terms of football is the upcoming World Cup. Obviously, it's not too far away now. A little bit upsetting that it's not going to be in the summer this year. Obviously, last year we had the Euros and it was around this time of year. I think it was actually yesterday was the anniversary of the Euros final.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and sunny times, everyone in the beer garden having a great time. What's your opinion on not only the placement of the World Cup in terms of location, but the time of year that it's been switched to this year?
I think it's not. Look, everything that we know about this World Cup is it should be now. It's not good for the football season. We're going to have a condensed season because of the World Cup. There are loads of conversations that should have probably happened before the World Cup was awarded to Qatar. There are so many things. And you could drive yourself mad having those conversations. And some people would suggest that I should do that. But for me, sports, football in particular, is actually my escape.
Right.
It's actually, what I'm going to try and do, I appreciate that all of those conversations should have happened. Should it have been awarded to Qatar? Probably not. But that's where it is. Should it be in December? Probably not, but that's when it is. And now I intend to fully embrace and have a brilliant World Cup. I love tournament football, lads. I love it so much. Prior to my kid being born, I went to 5 tournaments at some point, not the full tournament. I went to 5 tournaments in a row. I went to Brazil for the full month. I went to France for the full month, despite England's pitiful performance in both. I was in Brazil for a month, and England were in the tournament for 2 games. It was a new low for English football. We didn't even have to play our 3rd game. We were out before we even kicked a ball in the 3rd group game. It was pathetic. But I was there for the month, and I thoroughly love and almost revolve, but certainly before my daughter came along, I would revolve my year around a tournament. I'm not prepared to just sacrifice. I'm not prepared to. I'm not going to go to this World Cup on principle or whatever. And maybe I should. Maybe people will judge me for that. But when the World Cup comes along, I desperately want England to win it. I'll be listening to New Order on a loop. I'll have a bucket hat on, and with a bit of luck, I'll be in Qatar.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good way to look at it. I'm kind of in a similar boat of, I know once the World Cup comes around, I'll definitely watch it and enjoy it and appreciate it still. But as you said, there's obvious issues with it and how it's come about. I think there's been a few things like that in football in the last few years. Obviously, there was the Super League that fans revolted against and managed to stop that from happening at all. But I do think that the World Cup is something where it could have been a similar case, but the powers that be it was never going to happen. Once it had been awarded to Qatar, that was it. What do you think in terms of England's chances at this year's World Cup then? When you're watching it, do you think we're going to have a good tournament? Do you think we're going to make it to the final again like we did in the Euros, or it's not going to be as simple this time?
No, we won't. We don't have a chance. We don't have a prayer. I think that the team are good enough. The team are probably the best team. They will be the best 23 players to go to the tournament will be English overall. The best, like, I'm not saying that's the best first 11, but the best depth will be English. Look at who doesn't get into the England team. Like, genuinely, if you want to think about how good this England team are, you've got at right back, you've got the geezer that won La Liga last year, the year before. You got the Trent Alexander-Arnold, probably the best of the lot, probably doesn't start for England. You've got the geezer that won the league in England, and the one that will start won the European Cup the year before.
Yeah.
That's how good England's right back is. You know what?
Yeah, that's very true.
Like, there would have been a time when basically if you were Man United's right back, you played for England. Man United's right back, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, would be about seventh choice right back. That's how good this England team are in depth.
The only shame is that the Man United captain will probably also be playing for England at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely will. He definitely will. This is the problem again, and this is why I say that we have no chance of winning it, because there is no meritocracy to this squad selection. I can tell you the team that will start against USA now.
Yeah, it is a pretty obvious selection with Southgate.
It's truly ridiculous. So I don't think we have a chance, but I also think that this is the golden generation. I'm old enough to remember the golden generation that they called the golden generation. You know, the team that went to 2002.
I was barely around then, right, so I'll know of the players, but I won't know them too well. The team that went to 02 was seen as a golden generation. It was seen as being an elite team, and of course it was. You know, it was
It was a very gifted team, a team that could have done more, probably should have done more. David Beckham in his pomp. That team beat Argentina. We beat Argentina out in Japan. It was a really good team, and it was certainly seen as being one of the best that England have ever assembled. This team is better than that. Not necessarily the first 11, because I think the first 11 of that 2002 was top draw. But this team is comparable. But in terms of the bench, just to put it out there, like this team that I'm talking about being elite, it was bloody Danny Mills at right back, whereas we think about England's team now. So this is, for me, an actual golden generation.
No, I completely agree. I think with the talent we have, and especially the fitness within the team nowadays as well, compared to a lot of other nations, everyone playing in top leagues around the world, whereas some nations don't have the same privilege as that. They might have some playing, of course, the Portuguese league is good, and like the Brazilian leagues and stuff are okay, but most of our team pretty much play in the Premier League, which in my opinion is the greatest league in the world.
Yeah, well, it is. If you just look at how many English teams get to the European Cup final year after year. We had an all-English Cup final 2 years ago, Liverpool in it this year. It just is. It's not an opinion anymore. Like when you say that, you sometimes look slightly conceited, but I don't think it is conceited anymore. The English league has actually become the Super League.
Yeah, it's kind of worrying to me. In like compared to the rest of the leagues in the world, I feel like the Premier League might take over a little bit too much.
Yeah,
like I don't want it to get boring, the European competitions. Of course, there's always going to be Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, but at what point can they keep up with our like TV right money, etc.?
I don't think they can. Also, you've got to remember, like, look at the Bundesliga. We send our kids to the Bundesliga. Like the way we used to treat the Championship. Like,
yes,
Jadon Sancho, Jude Bellingham, go. You're not quite good enough for the Premier League yet. Go and perfect your craft, then we'll bring you back. Erling Haaland, go and perfect your craft, then we'll bring you back. The best players in the Bundesliga, Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, right, we're going to buy you. Like, that demonstrates the power of the Premier League.
Yeah, 100%. I had one last question on the World Cup as well. So in terms of team selection, who are your outside picks to get into the team? If you were Gareth Southgate right now and you were looking at the squad you have to take, maybe even some of those that are going to come off the bench and make a big impact, who would you maybe drop and who would you take along for the World Cup?
Okay, a player. Look, I think it's very difficult with Southgate because I think he knows his selection already. So it's very unlikely. Like James Tarkowski, for example, could have the season of his life. He could be Premier League Player of the Year, and Everton could go the entire season not conceding a goal. He's not getting in over Maguire because that's how Southgate operates. But a player who I think is going to have a big season and will go to the World Cup and potentially have a decisive role in it is left field. But I think Harvey Elliott's going to have a big season.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that call at all, to be honest.
I think he's a really good player, mate. If he hadn't been injured, like look at his contribution those first 5-6 games of last season before he got injured. Yeah. He was looking good. If you look at Liverpool at the moment, I think their midfield is slightly... It's not weak, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not as strong as it was, and it's certainly not as strong as City's, and therefore there will be opportunities for Elliott because James Milner is 37 or something like that. Jordan Henderson played a lot of football last year, but I feel like he's coming to the end because of the way he plays. Naby Keita, I don't think is good enough. Fabinho is obviously going to start. Thiago Alcantara has had injury problems, and I just think this season there will be an opportunity for Harvey Elliott, as there will Curtis Jones as well. But I just think Harvey Elliott's, I think he's a player, mate. I think he's a really good player.
No, he's definitely one of the best youngsters in that position in the Premier League. Yeah. I believe it was at Ellen Road he got injured as well last season. I think I was there.
It was a good tackle. Yeah. It was very unlucky. It was a good tackle.
No, it wasn't a malicious tackle. I'm a Leeds fan, yes.
Oh, lads, I'm
Persona. Oh, you are as well. Yeah. I always think that Tim's a Stoke fan.
No, not anymore. No. I was back in the day.
I am persona non grata up there at the moment. I said something the other day on social media that did not go down well.
Yeah, I must admit, I remember a season or two ago, you were not a massive fan of Patrick Bamford for a few months, and then he turned it on and did really well. And then, like, all of a sudden, everyone on the internet was loving him, and I was like really happy to see it because he went from being
like
hated.
Bamford. I do like him as a player. Obviously, he was at Chelsea, but no, where I got it in the neck. I mean, more recently as well. But initially, I just didn't get the Bielsa thing. And I know that's sacrilege. Yeah. I know that's sacrilege. I apologize to everybody listening. I just didn't get it, and nor should I, because it was yours. It was owned by you. You know, if I were to tell you that, if I were to start talking to you about the brilliance of Dennis Wise, you wouldn't get it, and nor should you. each club has their own identity, and you sing about Dominic Matteo scoring in the San Siro or whatever. It's got nothing to do with me. But from the outside looking in, I didn't get Bielsa. But when I voiced that on social media, ooh la la, bad.
They came down on you.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, though. I think maybe I'd probably get in trouble with this with a lot of Leeds fans. But when Bielsa went, I think it was time for him to go. Like, I think it was getting to the point we were shipping like 4 to 6 goals every game, pretty much, just slowly sliding down the table. Of course, he's forever going to be a legend. Like, it's the first time he brought the first Leeds Premier League era that I've seen in my lifetime that's like of real memory anyway. Yeah. So he's always going to be a legend to me and every Leeds fan. But I do think that it got to the point we were injuries all the time, conceding multiple goals every game, and then Marsh came in and did shore up the ship and keep us up. So I didn't really have too much of a problem with it. I feel like I'm gonna get
maybe you're about to get trolled, mate. You've taken the heat off me. Thank you.
No, it's so good. It's so good.
So moving away from the football, getting more into yourself and things that you've done in the past. So I just wanted to touch on your acting career, as I know you've had quite a couple of roles across a couple. You've had TV shows, you've had movies, you've had TV movies. Which of those would you say was your favorite to work in, and how did you find the general like outlay of working in those mediums?
I mean, being an actor was a wonderful life for me at that age. Being in my mid-20s, early to mid-20s, sort of ducking about London's West End, going for auditions, hanging out with other actors, knocking around a Groucho club till late at night. It was great. It was a wonderful way to live. But it's precarious. It's hard. It's like, I actually liken it to being a professional footballer. It's the same thing. When you talk about being an actor, or you talk about being a professional footballer, you immediately think it's a wonderful life, because in your head you go, well, Jordan Henderson has a lovely life, or Peter Crouch had a wonderful time. Whereas that isn't the true story of being a footballer. And it's similar to being an actor. Tom Hardy has a great time. Dan Kaluuya has a great time. But for most actors who are ducking and diving and nicking an episode on Holby City here and an episode of The Build there and whatever else, it's a hard grind. Like, imagine being a professional footballer and you get a 2-year contract at Torquay. So you and your family all go down to Torquay. You get your 3 kids into school at Torquay. You do 2 years. 6 months before the end, they go, yeah, we're not renewing. So then you go to your missus and go, I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is I've got a new club. The bad news is we're all moving to St. Mirren. And do you know what I mean? You've all got to go. And in 2 years from there, they're knocking you on the head and you've got to move to Halifax. And it's a hard life. It's a hard life. And you're doing all that and you're really slogging. And you know that by the time you get to 35, it's probably over. You're probably nicking £1,000 a week at the best. It's tough. And I think acting's like that. For the famous ones, for the ones that you can reel off or whatever, it's great. But it's also quite difficult. And when you're 22, all those concerns don't matter, because I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't want a mortgage. I didn't have a wife. I didn't have a kid. So it didn't matter. It was brilliant. You're always going to be all right at 22. So living that kind of actor's life then was brilliant. But I became aware when I was about 28, 29, that if I wanted, which I always did, a little bit of stability. Do I want to be a dad? Yes, I do. Do I want to get married? Yes, I do. Unless you're George Clooney, very difficult to do that as an actor, because you have absolutely no idea where you're working. You have absolutely no idea if you're ever going to work again. You have absolutely no idea if you're going to ever earn any money again. But on the other side of that coin, the phone could ring tomorrow. You go for an audition and all of a sudden you're headlining, you're the main actor in the new season of Top Boy. You're a millionaire like that. So it's changed everything. But it's the lottery of acting that didn't really suit me. But I look back on it so fondly.
So out of all the roles that you played in your time acting, which would you class as your favorite? Like which show? Or
yeah, I'm trying to think. I love them all. I genuinely did love them all. I think like a job that was very good for me was Doctor Who. Like, I met some incredible people in Doctor Who. Like the lady so I was in an episode called The Idiot's Lantern, which was a Mark Gatiss episode, brilliantly written. Loved being in it. And the lady who played my mum is married to a playwright, the guy that wrote Closer, you know, the film with Julia Roberts and whatever. It's a play. He wrote that, and he and I became quite good friends. I played for his football team, and through him, that was the most kind of life-changing job I've ever had, I think. But I love them all. Like the difficulty being an actor isn't working. You know, most jobs it's going to work that's the problem. Time off is great. Being an actor, it's the complete opposite. Like I loved working as an actor. The problem is that you might not work, and how do you deal with your downtime, and how do you earn money when you're not earning money as an actor? But the acting itself was great. But if I had to say one job, yeah, it would probably be that, or I did some adverts for the post office, which, don't get me wrong, they're not, nobody's, you know, I didn't win a BAFTA for them, but they were so well paid. So maybe that was
Yeah, that's it. Well, I remember watching the episode of Doctor Who that you were in, and after looking into your back catalogue and then going, oh, bloody hell, there you go. That's who it is. Yeah. But then I also know that you've done a music video as well for Chemical Brothers. Yeah. How did you go about landing that?
That was around about the same time. That was around about the same time as EastEnders, you know, because it was touch and go whether I was going to have the time to do it. But I really wanted to, obviously, because Chemical Brothers, iconic, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And we managed, me, my agent, and the production team of EastEnders managed to just get me. I think it was all done in a day, so I just needed that one day off. And it was a pair of brothers who were the directors. It was really good to do, and I think that might be the most successful thing I've ever done. You know, in terms of like that one, I think it won an MTV Music Award or whatever. Like it was a good video, not because I was. It was a good video because of the concept, and I happened to be in it. But no, that was great. And I've had some. I remember once I was in the Camden Palace, which is a nightclub around my way, and they played it. Like they played the song, but they put the video up. That was a trippy experience. Everybody in there was just like, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Yeah, exactly. So that was quite. And do you know what? That's one. You know, when I think about like all the work I did, like some of it I'm very proud of because I thought it was very good. Certain smaller films. I was in a film called Shifty, and I'm quite proud of that because of the product, and it was made for $100,000, and everybody really did pull their weight to make that film. And it has a great cast, Riz Ahmed and whoever else. And I have a tiny part in that, but I was very proud of that. I was at the National Theatre, I was at the Soho Theatre. I did a lot of theatre work that I was also very proud of. And it's quite funny because the thing that, you know, I'd love somebody to go, oh my God, are you the boy from that Pinter play? Or are you the boy from, and basically everyone goes, are you that boy that was having an acid trip on a Chemical Brothers video?
Talking to fish.
Yeah. Were you having a chat with Nemo? Yeah, that was me. So yeah, I'd say that is the thing that I am most recognized for. They don't recognize me at the time, but when people find out, when people find out, their mind is blown.
That was definitely a situation for me as well. When again looking through it, when I went, oh no way, that makes
That's definitely the one.
Yeah, definitely. So is there any interest for you to do any sort of acting roles in the future, or are you more set on the career path that you're on now, or would you take anything up if you were offered it?
No, I would take it. I loved it. I loved acting. It's a wonderful life. It's a great, like, you're telling stories, man. It's a great way to live. But do you know what? The reason I stopped acting is because I was struggling for work at one point in it. In particular, I could have persevered or whatever, but I jumped ship because I jumped ship, man, overboard.
Hey.
But no, I jumped ship because I was worried about work and whatever. So there was a time when I was kind of dedicating my life to being an actor. I didn't get enough work. So the fact that I'm now not dedicating my life to it and I'm fully focused on other things, it would be fairly arrogant to think that I could waltz back in and get a job. But stranger things have happened. If I got an opportunity to be an actor again, of course, I would bite your hand off. But I'm obviously not holding my breath for that to happen.
Yeah. You think you're out of that career path now, and but again, you know, stranger things have happened, like you say.
Exactly.
And if it was Stranger Things, you know,
there we go. You're a billionaire immediately.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, one question I had on that front, actually, and this is probably a very difficult one. So as an actor, is there any like films or TV shows that you've watched that you think are like pinnacle of TV, or any actors in particular that you think are the pinnacle of acting?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, I think Gary Oldman, like the actors I always used to hold in high esteem when I was an actor, because I would try and be like them. And now actors who I just appreciate because I have no sort of vested interest. Gary Oldman, Jack Nicholson will always be my sort of favorite two actors. I think Gary Oldman is about as gifted as you can be, and in terms of exports from this country to the States, I'm trying to think, but I can't really think of anybody that's been a more successful export from the UK. Gareth Bale, he won a lot of Champions Leagues, but a different conversation. So Gary Oldman up there. I mean, Jack Nicholson, when I was a kid, I used to just love the lunacy of Jack Nicholson, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and all that. So that would certainly be it. But I don't know if there's a recency bias here in what I'm saying, but I think Top Boy is just amazing. I genuinely do. I think it's so good. And I take a lot of pride in it because I'm a proud Londoner, and it's clever in as much as it tackles issues about London that need tackling. So, for example, it's all set in Hackney, which is northeast London, and it somehow manages to tackle the gentrification problem of the city, which there is a huge one, by the way. Like, you would think that a show around sort of the gangster culture of London would ignore that, but it doesn't. It's brave to kind of take that on. I think certain performances in it, I don't know her name, annoyingly, because I had no idea that we would go in this direction. I love doing podcasts like this because they just take a completely different turn. But and to anyone who's seen it, there's a character called Jax. I just think she's like dazzlingly good. Like, I can see a spin-off. Like, I reckon if this happens, by the way, you have to put this clip out. There will be a spin-off. There will be a Top Girl.
Based on her.
Yeah, there will be a Top Girl. I'm convinced. I just think, look, everybody in it's brilliant. You know, I think Asher D's brilliant. I think Kano's brilliant. But that girl, you know, it's very difficult, isn't it? When you're in scenes with wonderful actors, but you just steal the scene. Yeah. She seems to do that in virtually every scene she's in. I think she's amazing.
Yeah, I do think that's the sign of a pretty amazing actor. If your eyes are always on her when she's on screen, then she's definitely winning. Yeah,
like Paulie Walnuts in The Sopranos, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah. It's like you'll always be drawn to him, like little one-liners from him, whatever. So yeah, I don't. That's the thing that I've seen most recently, anyway. That really captivated me. Like generally, I'm quite hard to please as well. You know, like everybody would tell me how good Peaky Blinders is, and I thought it was good. I thought it was all right. I enjoyed it, but that was kind of the end of my conversation on it. It was good. I'm loving Ozark at the moment, but I'm not enough of the way through. But in terms of like capturing me, I just thought Top Boy was amazing, because something as difficult as that, it could be done so badly, and yet it preserves an element of reality and realness and redeeming qualities to some of the most violent characters I've ever seen on telly. You know, like how can you feel sympathy towards somebody like Kano's character, and yet you do? So it's a very impressive show, and represents London brilliantly, I think.
Yeah, Top Boy did a great job of representing a different side to London, but also showing that people that may be a part of certain walks of life, in terms of like the gang side of London, actually have a personal life, and there's many reasons behind them going down that path, etc. Sure. A completely different thing, and maybe Kano kind of spurred this question in my head. One question that we ask everyone that comes on the podcast is for their dream festival lineup. So if you were to go to a festival and you can pick 3 headliners, who are those headliners going to be?
It's a very, very good question. Okay, it's going to have to tap into the Dream Festival. Will tap into each element of music that I like.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
So I will go for, simply for posterity, Oasis Reform, and they headline the Pyramid stage. The next night we will go for, it's very difficult. This is a very good question.
It catches people a lot of off guard.
Yeah, what gets? Do you know what I think they'd be? They'd have to be sort of a garage tent. They'd have to be a garage hour. So because that was when I was a kid. Like that was the music. Anything from Heartless Crew to So Solid, all of the DJs that were involved, all of the MCs that were involved. Like a garage Renaissance hour would be good. Dizzy, and also like so somebody like Dizzy Rascal came through the garage scene, so he'd be involved in that. And then I went through a spell about 15 years ago of that kind of ravey deep house scene. So somebody like, you boys are from Leeds, we'll go Miguel Campbell. I think he's a fellow Yorkshireman. But that was that, that deep house Ibiza. Or do you know what it could be? It could be a Groove Armada live. Groove Armada live. I'll go for that. Yeah. I'll go for that. Hands in the air. Hands in the air, sunglasses on indoors, and a Larry shirt. I'll go for those three: Groove Armada, a garage tribute, and Liam Gallagher. Yeah, with an honourable mention to Alex Turner.
Okay.
He'd have to get wheeled out. You know the way Alex Turner always wheels out Miles Kane. Liam Gallagher's going to wheel out Alex Turner for me. Yeah.
So Alex Turner's going to be the support act to the reformed Oasis, or just Liam.
Exactly. There we go. No, we'll go Oasis, definitely.
Yeah, no, Oasis are a class. That's an amazing pick. We've had some a very varied number of picks now. We've had like Weezer, Oasis, or Groove Armada's one of the most unique ones. But yeah, some fantastic.
Oh, you can't go wrong. Groove Armada live. Groove Armada live in the right setting. So if the setting is perfect, right? You're a Monday night. You're on the Space Terrace of Ibiza. I think it's called High now, and Tom Finley from Groove Armada is on the ones and twos. You're having a good night. It's like impossible for you not to have a good night.
Yeah, that's very correct. So speaking of events, I know that you've been to some of the biggest sporting events around the world. I know you went to the Superbowl last year.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and that looked fantastic. It's a dream event that I'd love to go to. And I know you've been to many Champions League games and stuff. In terms of those events, is there any that stand out as one of your favourites that you've attended?
Yeah, I mean, the Champions League final for Chelsea winning in Munich is the answer to this, but it's the answer because of the result. Like if Chelsea had won in Moscow, it'd probably be that. But in terms of the spectacle, in terms of trying to appreciate it without my kind of tribal bias, the Super Bowl was up there. The Super Bowl was good, like really good. But I like the horse racing. I feel like the horse racing doesn't get the a day at Cheltenham or whatever. I love that. A day at Ascot, a day at Cheltenham, that for me is massively up there.
So I've not been to horse racing much. I went once when I was younger, probably really young to the point I shouldn't put this online. And my dad was like, "Oh yeah, you can have a fiver to put on this horse." And I think one of them actually won as well, which probably led to me getting one of the old FIFA games back in the day. But yeah, I'm certainly jealous of the Super Bowl. And the only Champions League games I've ever caught of have happened to be at the Etihad. I went to a few last year. Of course, Leeds haven't reached those heights in my lifetime, and I doubt we will really. So I'd be lucky to ever see Leeds play in Europe. But I've seen City play a few times.
Yeah, I mean, days like that, look, there's no reason why it doesn't happen. I mean, I can remember Leeds playing in Europe. It was Valencia, wasn't it? They played Valencia in the semi-final.
Yes, yeah.
So I certainly remember it, and there's no reason why that doesn't happen again. And on some level, I kind of want it to. It's a very difficult one. It's a very difficult one for me with Leeds because Leeds are a huge rival of Chelsea, and I like the rivalry and I respect the rivalry, and therefore I have an antipathy towards Leeds. But equally, I like big clubs. I like clubs with proper support. I like clubs with a pedigree and a history, and Leeds United are that. So by the end of last season, I kind of wanted you to go down, but then I didn't because the Premier League is a far richer, better place for having Leeds United in it.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. I think a lot of people love to hate Leeds. I personally think that Leeds are obviously one of the most hated teams in the country because we have big rivalries with Chelsea, Man United, multiple teams across the country, and even teams that I wouldn't expect to, like Brentford fans really hate Leeds now because of when we went up and we were taking the piss and our players were putting videos on social media taking the piss out of Brentford. And yeah,
you've got no problem there, though, mate. I've lived in London my entire life, and I've never met a Brentford fan, so I wouldn't let this one trouble you.
No, it certainly won't.
I literally don't know a Brentford fan. Have you ever met one?
No, I actually haven't.
I don't think they exist, to be honest.
If you meet a Brentford fan, David Attenborough's going to pop out, isn't he? This is a very rare species.
He won't make it to the end of the week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, although weirdly, up north, I've never met a Tottenham fan.
Oh, I envy that. I know far too many. I know. I've got my fair share of Tottenham fans. My God, I'm from North London,
Yeah.
And obviously Tottenham and Chelsea are massive rivals anyway. But for me, that rivalry is just amplified so much because I'd say 50% of my mates are Tottenham fans. It's terrible.
All right. Well, yeah, you have the misfortune there. Although
Yes.
Tottenham haven't won anything in a long time, so
Coming, no man, it's coming this year.
Yeah,
I've got a bad
I think
feeling
this
about them.
season I was having a debate with one of my friends the other day, and he was saying that Tottenham have no chance of even getting in the top three. And I have a feeling that they actually might push for the league this season with Conte and with the smart signings that they've made so far in this transfer window. I can see them having a really good season.
I agree. I think they will.
Yeah.
And it's torturous.
So I know you mentioned being a fan of the of Leeds for the fan base, etc. In terms of atmospheres in football grounds that you've witnessed or that you maybe know of, what are some of your favourite atmospheres? I've seen a debate on Twitter the other day, and everyone was saying Portsmouth has one of the best atmospheres in the UK. A ground I've personally never visited, but what about from your point of view?
They can get rocking. It can go at Portsmouth definitely. Leeds is up there. Leeds is definitely up there. Goodison Park goes. Anfield, I mean, it's trendy to say that Anfield doesn't, but Anfield does at specific times. Like a European night at Anfield, it is true. Like it is true. I've seen it. It is true that it's reverberating and whatever. And I will always rate Anfield as a cauldron. I think Old Trafford has its moments as well. When we play Arsenal, they could be very loud at Stamford Bridge. I think home support in London particularly is massively sanitized. Chelsea have problems. But I feel like our away support is often quite vocal. But in terms of the Premier League, my favourite away day, obviously Leeds weren't in it for years, but my favourite away day was always Goodison Park. Good old-fashioned ground. You get a great allocation. You can make a real racket in there. It's still very old in as much as I remember it was wooden seats until fairly recently. And you can just make a real racket. It's a beautiful ground, Goodison Park. It's a shame they're leaving.
Yeah, a strange story. I've actually sat in the Chelsea away end at Goodison Park because one of my mates was a Chelsea fan and he was meant to be going with his dad and his dad bailed on the day. So he rang me. So I ended up
what was the game? Can you remember the game?
I think Everton won 4-2. So it wasn't very nice sitting with the Chelsea fans. I think it was 4-2. Yeah.
Right, I can't remember that.
But it was back. It was still when they had wooden chairs. It was a few years ago. It was in like 2016. But yeah, that was a strange experience. I actually made my way down to Stamford Bridge last year as well for the cup game against, I think it was Cheltenham.
Yes, we did play. Yeah. You went to that, did you?
Yes, yeah. I'll just go to football stadiums. I was meant to be in London for a gig, and I noticed that I could get tickets for the Chelsea game, so I thought, why not go?
Yeah. That's a good way of doing it. Just nice and relaxed. Pop along whenever you fancy it.
Yeah.
So what would you say in terms of atmospheres across the different sporting events that you've been to? Because I know a lot of people say that American sporting fans are a lot different to how UK sporting fans are. How would you say there's much of a difference there? Are they quieter, louder?
No, there's huge difference. I mean, it's totally incomparable. Like for American NFL fans support their team in a totally different way. It's far more passive. You sit down, for example. I think it's just what you expect. I think most people in the UK aren't at football stadiums to be entertained. That like entertainment isn't the motivation for going. To watch your team win, to feel part of an atmosphere, to feel part of belonging to something. Loads of reasons, representing your area, whatever. But entertainment is low on the list. Yeah. Whereas I think from a stateside perspective, entertainment is priority number one. Like if I want to be entertained, I'll go to the cinema, theatre maybe. Like that's entertainment. When I go to Stamford Bridge, I just want my team to win. I don't care about anything. I just care, do we win? I don't care about any of the routes that could lead you there. Do I want entertaining football? Not especially. Do I want it to be an entertaining game? Don't really care. Do I want it to be played in a fair way? Not really, if it benefits my team. I just want my team to win. And I don't think that's how everyone approaches football, but I think that's how a lot of people in the UK do. But with regard to the States, I just don't think that's how I'm talking like an aficionado here. I've been to one game, but from my experience, bearing in mind it was the biggest game of the season in LA. LA were playing. I was sitting amongst the LA fans. there was passion, but it was seated passion, just different, just different. And I think it's important to kind of acknowledge and respect the difference whilst not necessarily understanding it.
So was this the Super Bowl with the absolutely
Bengals.
amazing halftime show?
Yeah, it was Dr. Dre and that.
It was the Dre one with Eminem
Mary J. Blige and
Kendrick.
and
then Kendrick. Yeah. Oh, I bet that was
Yeah,
amazing. I bet
good.
that was something else.
It was good. It was just a brilliant day.
Mhm.
It was just such a good day. I mean, you couldn't ask for much more, could you? You're in Hollywood, LA. LA is the host city. LA have made it. You're sitting amongst the LA fans, playing against the Bengals, who are like an exciting team as well. You know, Joe Burrow and that. It's a cool team. Yeah, it was the perfect storm. I had a sort of, it's one of those life affirming moments, isn't it? It's a tentpole moment of your life. You've been to a Super Bowl. There are certain things like that. Like, I want to go to the Kentucky Derby, but I haven't had an opportunity yet. But when I do, it will feel very special. And that's certainly how I felt about the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I went to WrestleMania a few years ago, and that was a similar thing where there was like 120,000 people in a stadium, and The Rock came out and stuff, and it was just unbelievable. Like,
yeah. My mate went to that. I think it was in Texas fairly recently.
Yes,
and
it
he
was.
Like, it was one of the best things that's ever happened to him.
Yeah. So I had one last question for you, Rory. Seeing as obviously you're known as the internet's biggest Chelsea fan, I just wanted your predictions on how you think Chelsea will do this season.
Chelsea will win a trophy. I've no idea what. I've no idea how. I think we'll get top four. There'll be no real dramas with top four, but we need a trophy. And that is, I think Chelsea will finish in the top four. We won't win the league, but we will secure a form of silverware, and maybe, just maybe, it's the European Cup.
Oh yeah, that'd be incredible if you managed to pull that off again. I think it was 2 years ago now you won? 2
years ago, exactly. Yeah.
That was a bit of a surprise for me as well. I remember when Lampard came in as manager and you made all these signings. You got Timo Werner, you got Kai Havertz, etc. I actually put a bet on at the start of that season for Chelsea to win the league. I think it was 8-1, so I put like 10 or 20 quid on it, thinking, come on, they've got a chance. And that was even with Lampard and my hatred for him, given what he did at Derby against Leeds. And then it didn't end up going that way at all, so it made me hate Lampard even more.
Yeah, mate. I mean, it's a well-told story in Leeds, that one, isn't it? There is genuine antipathy towards Lampard there. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's possible for me to love that man anymore. But if it was, that would make me love him even more.
Yeah, I remember being sat in the stadium after Derby beat us in the playoffs and Lampard coming up to my stand and pretending to cry, all the fans. And I love it at the same time in terms of like that footballing passion, but I was sat there thinking, I'm going to hate this guy forever now.
And I've got that picture, where he's sort of drying his eyes. I've got that picture saved on my phone. I've got a couple of Leeds fans that are my mates from university. So every now and again, if they pipe up, that gets put in. I just put it, I make it the icon of the group chat.
Right. What a great way to end it. Anyway, Rory, thank you so much for joining.
Lads. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Good luck.